Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Ways and Means Committee. Today is Thursday, March 11th. We have 9 bills before us today. This is the day that we deal with some, we start the day with 4 tax bills, we deal with 2 gaming bills, and then we end with 3 bills related to economic development. We are delighted to be joined today by Delegate Beitzel with House Bill 1017. Delegate Beitzel, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I proceed?
Please.
Madam, for the record, I'm Delegate Wendell Beitzel here to present House Bill 10, Income Tax Credit for Venison Donation, Alterations, Extension, and Testing for Chronic Wasting Disease. I've talked to Delegate Lukey, and I'm under the understanding that he's going to roll part of this bill into another bill where they're addressing this particular issue. And he's informed me that we don't need to, and he's graciously presented this idea to me, and I'm in agreement with what he's going to do with this venison donation funding and the way they're going to do that. And I understand he's worked with DNR and other folks, even on the Senate side, to get this accomplished. So I think this narrows this bill down to being a bill that addresses only the testing of deer that are brought into processing stations for chronic wasting disease. It has a requirement that DNR does testing and makes a report back to the General Assembly by December the 31st, 2021. And I'm just have one question, maybe of Delegate Lukey, is if that 1-year testing report is enough, or should we maybe have a multi-year testing requirement so that we can have some sense of whether there's an expansion of this disease in our hunting areas in Maryland. So with that, I would ask for favorable report on the bill, and I understand the committee's going to take care of the amendments that we've talked about here.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Beitzel. Any questions for Delegate Beitzel? All right, thank you. Seeing no questions for Delegate Beitzel, we do have one person signed up as a witness, Peggy Dennis. Ms. Dennis, good to see you today. All right, you need to unmute. We do have, all right, go ahead. Oh, you were unmuted, now you're remuted. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
for the record, I'm Peggy Dennis from Potomac, testifying in support of HB 1017 on behalf of the Montgomery County Civic Federation.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Somebody has their if you have the YouTube station on at the same time, it has a
I don't know how to get rid of it.
Just block it in the top right corner. There's an X. Just get rid of that part of the website.
Can you hear me?
Somebody has their YouTube. If you have the YouTube station on at the same time, it has a
I don't know how to get rid of it.
Top right corner.
Block it in the top right corner. There's an X. Just get rid of that.
Mine
part
is
of the,
different, Madam Chairman.
Okay, I just this is kind of an untenable way for us to listen to this, unfortunately. We might have to come back to it. If you're hopefully you're still listening, they probably exited the whole thing. We will come back to Ms. Dennis then on a later bill. Delegate Beitzel, just to let you know, she is favorable on your bill. So we are otherwise done with the hearing on House Bill 1017.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If she comes back, we will let her testify. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Delegate Cox, House Bill 1149.
Thank you, Madam Chair Kaiser and Vice Chair Washington and honorable members of the committee. It's an honor to come before you today to urge a favorable report for House Bill 1149, Small Business Tax Relief State of Emergency Orders. Delegate Dan Cox for the record. Public Safety Article 14, or excuse me, Title 14 allows businesses and property owners to obtain an extension of tax due until 6 months after the state of emergency has ended. But nothing protects businesses from then having to pay the back taxes for the times when the government has closed their doors. This bill corrects this abusive policy of taxation upon destitution, and instead will prevent a massive moving out of Maryland of our businesses to more business-friendly states. According to the NFIB, which testimony is in the record from the NFIB in support of this bill, small business owners have felt a disproportionate impact from COVID-19 pandemic shutdowns compared to medium and large-sized firms. And only 5% of small business owners report that the economic conditions are back to normal. The economic strain on small businesses appears to be easing just slightly for some owners, with 15% reporting that they will have to close their doors if the economic conditions do not improve. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, since December 2019, and this is crucial, nearly 125,000 jobs in Maryland have been lost. Jobs have hit the Restaurant Association and the business sectors. The losses have been most egregious in those areas, with losing over 1.4 billion in sales, with 40% of restaurants indicating that they may have to close their doors permanently in Maryland. And as many as 150,000 employees have been furloughed or been part of the permanent layoffs. Maryland small businesses need relief from this disaster. And with the good news of $5 billion in stimulus payments coming to Maryland, with over 5 Maryland jurisdictions receiving over $100 million from the federal government with the stimulus package, we have the ability now to ensure that the future health of businesses can be strong, so that the business status will stay in Maryland and will produce future taxes to help our budget stay strong. So with that, I would urge a favorable report for my bill, and House Bill 1149, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Delegate Cox. Are there any questions for the delegate? All right, thank you. Seeing no questions, we are done with the hearing on House Bill 1019. Delegate Brooks, House Bill 1178. You're still muted.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Chairman Kaiser, Vice Chair Washington, and members of this esteemed committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of HB 1178. Now, I'm proud to sponsor this bill because for a first-time homebuyer savings account legislation that will address some of the most common barriers that all first-time homebuyers face, but particularly people of color. HB 1178 creates a tax-free savings account to assist buyers purchasing their first home. Already, home ownership and home equity can be a key strategy to closing the wealth gap between white households and households of color. HB 1178 will allow first-time buyers to deposit up to $5,000 per year over a period of 10 years, which translates into $50,000 tax-free, into a savings account to assist with the buying and the payment of the settlement costs associated with a home purchase. Down payments and closing costs are the biggest impediments to many first-time home buyers purchase who make enough money to afford the monthly mortgage payment, but may have student debt or some other costs that would prevent them from purchasing a home. This bill will not only help maximize first-time home buyers' dollars, but offer an incentive to start planning to purchase that home. The bill also allows individuals to create an account for beneficiaries, like a child or grandchild, Unfortunately, the statistics pointing to the importance of this legislation are not getting any better. Like 52% of all children live at home with their parents, and that percent keeps dropping so far as home buyers are concerned. 79% of first-time home buyers rely on savings to purchase their first home, compared to 58% of all other buyers. So it is these first-time buyers who are heavily reliant on savings. And this bill targets them for that particular assistance. I'm looking forward to working with the House and the Senate to make sure that we get this bill passed. And this is a priority, and I think this can help these first-time buyers in a very, very tremendous way. I call this a trifecta plus. Where else can you acquire an assets that will allow you to write off interest on borrowed money, allow you to write off property taxes, use it, and it appreciates in value. It becomes win-win, and it's a force multiplier. So for that, I request a favorable report, and I will entertain any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Brooks. I've heard a lot of great things about this bill. My mind has changed potentially over the last 3 years from the last time it was introduced by a different delegate. I wanted to know if you could address one criticism that I've heard, that a program like this benefits those that are already wealthy or who's already come from wealthy families. Wondering if you could address.
That's a great question, Madam Chair, but I would think that people of means would perhaps find a different vehicle that they can get a much better return on, because as we all know, putting money in a bank or a financial institution, the amount of return that you get is anemic, So I think those folks of means, they would probably find vehicles that's going to generate a much greater return than this. And primarily what this is a means of that particular person saving. Of course, yeah, there's going to be some tax reduction, tax savings from this, but at the same time, I just don't think that they would necessarily use this as a real vehicle that's going to generate huge amounts of funds. So.
All right, thank
you. Plus the fact too, Madam Chair, that a person's of means, parents would probably just give them the money for the down payment, as opposed to trying to save it up over a period of 50 years.
All right, excellent point, Delegate. Thank you. We have a couple more questions. Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Delegate Brooks. I love this trifecta.
Okay.
I like this bill a lot because I think at the end of the day, it helps so many people of color create generational wealth.
Yes.
And I think that's the direction you're going. Do we know how many people in the state of Maryland are first-time home buyers?
Offhand, I can't say, but we can do some research and circle back and provide that information to you.
I'm just curious as to the number of first-time home buyers, if we can obtain that information, because I think it would give us a great indication how this program will be fared. I'm just thinking in some of those areas like Baltimore City and Prince George's County, in Eastern Shore and Western Maryland, that could really benefit from such a program like this, to try to provide for their children and those young adults that want to become homeowners. For a program like this, I think it would go a long way. So I really commend you for putting this bill in your foresight.
Delegate Barnes, you have a question.
I did. I asked. I said, did we know how many homeowners were homeowners?
Well, I heard that a minute ago. I was wondering if you had a new question.
No, that was it. Thank you.
All right. What is it we're supposed to say in those situations?
Isn't that so?
Thank you. Yes, I couldn't think of it. Yes, Delegate Hartman, with the next question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Brooks, I like the bill as well. Why would they be restricted to a simple savings account? Why not a separate account with Dean Witter or something like that, investing in mutual funds or whatever to benefit that person even more than simply $51,000 after 10 years if they're lucky?
All righty then. Well, in the bill, I've got it. It's financial. It's described as a financial institution, and under the annotated code of Maryland, I think it's section 1-101. It speaks about the other type of financial institution that you could utilize. It doesn't speak specifically to Merrill Lynch, but it does speak of credit unions, bank, even it could be state chartered, it could be federally chartered, you know. So as long as the account is being set up as a first-time home buyer's account, and the home is being purchased in the state of Maryland. But perhaps I can go back and look at that section of the code and see whether or not it would allow for using other type of financial institution, which I would think those as long as the account is set up as a first-time home buyer's account, then that would not prevent the person from making the investment into that account. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Delegate Lutke with a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Delegate Brooks, I too love this bill. I think this is a fantastic bill. I do. So to Delegate Hartman's question, it's not clear to me from reading the bill, but you would be comfortable if we found a way to allow people to do this through financial products other than just a pure savings account, so there were some, potential better options for interest?
Yes, yeah, I would not object to that at all. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. We do have 4 people signed up. Thank you, Delegate Brooks. We will start with Dee Dee Miller. Oh, I'm sorry, there is a question from Delegate Long. Delegate Long, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a great bill. Thank you for bringing it, Delegate Brooks.
Thanks, Delegate.
Was what would happen if they plan on buying a house here in the state of Maryland and for some reason did have to move to another state? Would they have to pay those back taxes or,
No, it wouldn't be back taxes, but at that time it would be deemed, when you pull it out, it would be deemed ordinary income. So yeah, you would have to pay taxes on it at that time.
Okay.
The dollars that you took as a subtraction modification would have to be reported, as well as the growth on that account. Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I want to follow up, Delegate Brooks. So if that's the case that somebody might have to pay that back taxes, is there any education that's happening with this to let somebody know that could occur?
Oh, well, we could do that. It's in the bill. If you were to, what they could do, Chair, they could say transfer that account to a child, a grandchild who resides in the state, and they could use those funds then as a first-time home buyers. Take advantage of it.
I understand. I'm just thinking if there needs to be some kind of correspondence, some kind of education to just ensure that someone doing this would know that might be happening.
Okay.
So,
and one other thing, probably,
subcommittee.
I need to add to that. If those funds are pulled out prematurely, are not used for the intended purposes, there will be a 10% penalty associated with premature withdrawal. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
All right. There are 4 people signed up, but I found out one is not going to be able to be here. So we'll start with Dee Dee Miller.
Great. Good afternoon, Chair Kaiser and members of the committee. My name is Dee Dee Miller, and I am the 2021 president of Maryland Realtors. And I am here in support of House Bill 1178, which creates a tax-preferred savings account for first-time Maryland home buyers. HB 1178 allows individuals to contribute up to $5,000 a year into a designated account and deduct that amount from their state taxes. Up to $50,000 may be contributed or earned tax-free if that money is used to pay down payment or closing costs within 15 years of establishing that account. Down payment and closing costs are the biggest hurdle facing most of our first-time home buyers. Helping buyers overcome these barriers are often the best and most efficient way to help new buyers enter the market and start to build wealth through home equity. According to the Urban Institute, these challenges of shrinking housing opportunity are most evident in the growing gap in the home ownership rates of white households and households of color. That gap is now about 30 percentage points nationally. Maryland Realtors recently launched a consumer campaign called Open Doors to Stronger Neighborhoods to expand homeownership opportunities, and we believe HB 1178 will help do just that. As part of the Open Doors Maryland campaign, Maryland Realtors conducted a statewide survey examining Marylanders' attitudes about housing, and the poll revealed that obstacles to homeownership, like funds for a down payment, stagnant wage growth, and student debt, were experienced greater by people of color. HB 1178 targets this primary source of funds by giving individuals a tax incentive to establish their own home buyer savings account, as well as an incentive for relatives to save for an identified home buyer like a child or a grandchild. Maryland Realtors recognizes the important role of homeownership plays in wealth building for all Maryland families and encourages a favorable report of HB 1178. And if I have time to add briefly to Delegate, let's see, I think to Delegate Long's point about the incentive, leaving the state, I think frankly that would incentivize buyers to stay in the state, to be able to utilize those funds without having to pay those taxes. And with Delegate Barnes' question in reference to the number of first-time Maryland home buyers that we may be experiencing in our marketplace, unfortunately, the State Department doesn't keep records of that specifically, but we estimate it to be approximately 31%, which is a little bit on the low side this year. It's generally about 40%, and those are the statistics that I can provide to you today with this testimony. So again, we encourage a favorable support of HB 1178. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Claudia Randall.
Good afternoon, members of the Ways and Means Committee, Chair Kaiser. My name is Claudia Wilson Randall. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Development Network of Maryland. And for the last 15 years, I have worked closely with the Housing Counselors Network of Maryland, who are a group of professionals across the state who help folks navigate through the process of first-time homebuyer. And they provide close financial counseling as well as help people navigate through the process of foreclosure and foreclosure prevention and that kind of work. So I would also offer that this has been a really important strategy to help and support people through the first-time home buying process. You have my written testimony, and my colleague from the Maryland Realtors did a great job of talking about the implications of this bill, so I don't want to go on, but I do want to just say that the entry into the market, particularly for younger people right now between, and I'm going to say between 20 and 35, we're really falling short. And that's where the largest gap between of home ownership exists. And we're at the same point, Black home ownership is at the same point as it was 50 years ago when the Fair Housing Act was passed. So it's really critical that the state of Maryland look at these sorts of strategies that are in House Bill 1178 to figure out ways that close the gap, particularly among the younger part of the market. And evidence really shows that this is a critical part of wealth transfer from parents to children. So I would just urge you, urge favorable consideration of this bill, and to also think carefully about strategies that target this to those who most need to enter the market. And like I said, that really is the young end of the market, that's where the greatest gap of home ownership exists. Down payment assistance is critical for those folks at that part of the market. So with that, I'm going to close, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. And then we have one more person testifying. We have Susan Mitchell.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. And actually, I was just here for technical support, so me too.
Thank you. You win. Winning testimony of the day. There are a few questions from members. We'll start with Delegate Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for this bill. I have one quick question I'm going to direct to Ms. Miller. Does the bill cover persons who are first-time purchasers of rental property? Does this bill only apply to persons who will live in homes versus rental?
So I do believe, although Delegate Brooks can jump in, that is strictly for owner
Okay, go ahead.
occupied properties.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is for first time purchases. So you would have to purchase or own the property if to utilize these funds.
Question is whether or not you'd have to live in it. And so the question.
It was owner occupied.
Yes, primary residence, right, owner occupied.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Delegate Patterson. Next question, Delegate Barnes. Up, hands down now. Oh, go ahead, Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is also for Ms. Miller. And I appreciate the data that you provided. Is there any additional data as far as demographics? I know Ms. Randall indicated that the biggest need or concern is that age group around 20 to 25. But do we know for first-time home buyers, the demographics, the ages, the race of those individuals? Are we collecting that data?
So Susan, I actually defer to you for a brief answer on that, and then I'll circle back with additional comments. But do we have that specific of data at this point? I don't believe we do.
Actually, no, and as we had testified, that is not being collected. We have survey data from a poll that we recently did. It's the Maryland Housing Affordability Report. I can share that with the committee, but we do not have the first-time home buyer, and it just analyzes a lot of the moods and attitudes out there with regard to housing affordability.
Is there a reason why we're not collecting that data?
A lot of that data exists on the national level, and like the Maryland mortgage, for different products, FHA, different products have market segments. So you will be able to drill down on some of that data. For Maryland, we could provide some of that. But the information that I was also referencing is many of the studies from the Urban Institute, and I can be happy to provide the committee with that data.
Yeah, I think it would be good to share that data with the committee, but I do believe it would be good for us to be collecting that data here in the state of Maryland. So I think it's something that you all should get together and figure out how we go about doing that, but I think it's something that we should have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Barnes. Delegate Lutke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, I love this bill, and one of the things I like about it is exactly what Delegate Barnes was saying about its potential to help with intergenerational wealth, particularly in the Black community. But there's I don't see language in the bill regarding marketing of these products and this opportunity within communities of color in the state. So I wonder, and you don't have to give it now to Delegate Brooks and the folks that are here. If you have suggestions for how we can build that into this effort to make sure that folks do have an opportunity to access it, right? We don't want to create a financial opportunity that ends up being disproportionately applied, and that given that we only have one minority depository institution in the state, want to make sure this is accessible.
Yes, well, Delegate Luke, we would definitely accept your friendly amendment. So.
All right, thank you, Delegate. Delegate Long?
I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but sometimes you can have too much money. With first-time home buyers, I'd like to.
Delegate Long, I'll take some.
I didn't say me. I didn't say me. With a lot of these programs, if you have more than $1 of the qualifications, it can stop you from getting grants and things of that nature. Ms. Williams, I think it was Ms. Williams, was it? The housing counselor? Or I'm sorry, Ms. Randall.
There's Randall.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have any concerns about that for first-time home buyers having too much money? Be able to get into a house sooner than later?
No, I do not.
Really? Okay, good.
The people that I think are most needed are people who are actually already have a sufficient monthly income to sustain home ownership, but can't get in because they're not able to come up with the down payment and closing costs needed in what is a relatively high cost state, where the money needed up front is substantial, and that's what they don't have.
Right. And one last bite at the apple. My concerns would be for first-time home buyers, they're allowed to get different programs like SELP. I think SELP, one of the programs.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Programs.
Maryland Mortgage Program. Yeah. But
right.
Truthfully, what Maryland, and I'm really looking at the study that was just referenced, the housing needs assessment that was just came out, and also the Senate report on equity and inclusion. I'm not as concerned about the people who are not able to get into home ownership because they're $1 over. I'm concerned about the many more people behind them who are not able to get in at all. And our state is really going to have to address how we encourage that upward mobility for folks who don't have access at all. I'm not worried about the people who are just over. No. Right.
I totally agree with you, but I've seen cases where people had too much savings and wasn't qualified to get SELP and some other programs.
Those people are rare. I think those people are rare, and I don't want to seem unfeeling or without compassion that they can't get additional assistance from state or other programs, but I think they're rare. There are far more folks who they need help with that down payment and closing cost assistance to get into home ownership that could have a significant impact on their family and their future wealth, on their schools, on sustainability, on employment. So I would just say that I'm far more concerned about that for our state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Long. A lot of good questions from members on this bill. But seeing no other questions, we're done with the hearing on House Bill 1178. Thank you, Delegate Brooks.
Thank you, Chair.
On our first bill today, we had some challenge for one of the people testifying. So we're going to go back to Ms. Dennis, and then Delegate Howard, your bill is after that. So Ms. Dennis, would you like to go ahead?
Can you hear me?
And we hear just you and no echo. So we're
brilliant. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chairman, for your indulgence over my technological ineptitude. For the record, I'm Peggy Dennis from Potomac, and I'm testifying in support of Bill HB 1017 on behalf of the Montgomery County Civic Federation. Since its founding in 1925, the Civic Federation has committed itself to providing an effective citizen voice to government policymakers, both elected and appointed. The Civic Federation enthusiastically supports HB 1017. For years, our county and other counties in Maryland have been overrun with white-tailed deer. The deer have reproduced so prolifically that they have already destroyed the understory of many of our local, state, and even national parks. This degrades the overall environment, contributes to soil erosion and water pollution, and destroys the habitat for other species. The damage done by having too many deer has been recognized by our Montgomery County Parks Department, which has been expanding their deer hunting programs for over a decade. Even the C&O Canal National Historic Park has been given permission to run a deer hunting program in order to start to restore the damaged habitat. With this in mind, the Civic Federation voted some years ago to support the liberalization of deer hunting laws to enable more bow and arrow hunters to take out more deer, especially in our down county and suburban neighborhoods. HB 1017 will allow hunters to receive a greater income tax benefit for the deer they take, which are donated to feed the hungry. We have few hunters in Montgomery County, and many will only take the time to shoot venison for themselves and friends. Then we have an even smaller number of champion hunters like Mark Eakin, who, as a public service, will take out 30 to 40 deer in a season. This is an invaluable public service, but it is not free. The hunter must pay for the equipment, bow and arrows, tree stand, and feed dispenser. He or she must take time to drive to the hunting spot, Get set up, then wait for the deer to arrive, a process that may take hours. Then after the kill, the hunter must drive the carcass out to the processing facility in Damascus. Usually a hunter only gets 1 deer per trip. This bill will allow deer hunters a greater income tax benefit for the surplus deer they take out and donate to the county. Giving hunters a more generous tax deduction for public service they provide will help incentivize the public service, which is free for the public good, but costly to the hunters. That's why the Civic Federation urges you to give HB 1017 a favorable vote.
All right, thank you. Perfect timing as well. Any questions for Ms. Dennis? All right, thank you, Ms. Dennis. Thank you for joining us today. We will move back to Delegate Howard for our last tax bill of today, House Bill 1318.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, colleagues. Delegate Howard, for the record, HB 1318, very pleased to bring this bill to you. See Dan Cox's testimony about why all these bills are coming forward. We've heard endless testimony about the path of destruction that COVID has caused in especially our business lives, small business owners. It's a wide and deep path of destruction. When I crafted this legislation tries to accomplish a lot. But when I crafted this legislation, there was other legislation out there that was being crafted, like the Relief Act, that does take care of some of the points that are outlined in this comprehensive piece of legislation. For example, HB 1137 addresses the property tax credit. The Relief Act addresses the UI deferral. So in essence, what this bill does moving forward is it increases from $100 to $150 the price of clothing and footwear that are eligible for the sales and use tax exemption during the annual sales and use tax holiday for back to school shopping. The bill exempts from the state sales and use tax the sale of electricity, oil, liquefied petroleum gas, or artificial or natural gas to operate a restaurant. And beginning in September 2021, the bill establishes an annual 8-day sales tax-free period. The bill also exempts the sales of PPE if the item is less than $50. Those things, as we all know, disposable face masks or respirators, disposable gloves, plexiglass sneeze guard, et cetera. That's outlined in the fiscal note. This legislation would allow an individual or corporation to claim, this is important. This and another one that's coming up is very important to business owners. An individual or corporation to claim, beginning in tax year 2021 now, a non-refundable tax credit against the state tax for up to $250 for the cost incurred to purchase a newly owned or leased point of sale credit card equipment featuring, and we narrowly define this, featuring contactless payment technology. The bill increases, this is the other point of the bill, which I think is vital. The bill increases the sales and use tax vendor credit. In order to cover expenses for collecting the sales and use tax, filing timely returns are allowed to take a vendor credit against the gross tax remitted in an amount equal to 1.2% of the first 6,000 collected and 0.9% of the excess, capped at 500 per filing period. So essentially what's happening is that, and I'm a retailer. So every month when you go on, you pay your sales and use, you do it online, you're being charged. I'm being charged from my company, my credit card company that I use, that there is a charge that comes with that. So I'm essentially paying out of pocket to pay my tax, my sales tax. So this looks to remedy some of that, at least a large portion of that. And I crafted it in such a way as to not be onerous and to, protect our business owners without going overboard. This bill also establishes, like I said, the 7-day tax-free period and increases, let's see here, excluding accessories, costing $100 is exempt from the sales and use tax. In addition to clothing and footwear, the first $40 of the taxable price of any backpack or book bag purchased during the annual sales tax-free period for back to school shopping would also be exempt. So a couple of things have already been addressed by other pieces of legislation, and which I'm very proud of. You know, we fight and take shots at each other. Most of them aren't deserved, and one or two of them might be here and there. But at the end of the day, this legislature has gone a long way to trying to mitigate the damage and really help its business community and all communities. And I'm very, very proud of that. This legislation speaks to a couple of things that are still out there, like the touchless technology and the timely filing of the sales tax. These are long-term things that are beneficial to businesses. And I ask for a favorable report. And I thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Delegate Howard.
Thank you.
Any questions for Delegate Howard? All right, I don't see any questions. I'm going to move on to, there's 3 people signed up to testify. Give me a second. Sorry about that. Start with Kaylee Locklear.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and honorable members of the committee. For the record, Kaylee Locklear here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association in support of this bill. So as you've heard, the legislation does a variety of things to help businesses that we believe are meaningful opportunities here. In the interest of time, Mike and I know Melvin are going to cover some other areas of the bill, so I just want to focus on 3 of the items. First, in our Main Street partners and the designated program in the state, there are 40 designated Main Streets that we have an opportunity to work with and represent. Ask that the sales and use tax holiday for back to school shopping is expanded from $100 to $150 for clothing and footwear. Many of these clothing and footwear stores were among the hardest hit on the retail side as they were not considered essential businesses. The second is this sales tax exemption for PPE. And if you notice, this is only applicable during a catastrophic health emergency. And the number that we set, I know $50 sounds a little bit high, but when you look at disinfectant products, especially when you buy them in bulk, that's actually kind of a middle of the road number. So that's how we settled there. But of course, glad to work with the committee on that. We narrowed it just to face masks, gloves, sneeze guards, hand sanitizer, and disinfectant products. And then the final item I just want to touch on real quick is the credit card processing equipment tax credit to purchase or lease contactless payment technology. And this truly is a long-term investment for a business that helps to mitigate disease transmission. Madam Chair, you and I had a chance to talk about this before the session started, talk to other members. This is really meaningful even outside of this and is a great part of this bill that I think addresses what you and I talked about. This isn't a one-time kind of thing that we're giving. This is something that helps mitigate disease in the long run. So I'll stop there, urge a favorable report, and glad to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Locklear. We do have 2 other people signed up, and then we'll take the questions. We'll start with Melvin Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm Melvin Thompson, representing the Restaurant Association of Maryland, and we strongly support House Bill 1318, and we thank Delegate Howard for introducing this bill. We ask for your support of provisions in this bill that would provide more long-term benefits for our industry's full recovery and revitalization. The first issue is the sales tax vendor credit, and we believe this credit should be doubled. The problem that we're seeing today is that the credit doesn't really sufficiently cover the expense of collecting the tax. Most of the sales transactions today are by credit or debit card, and sales tax is included in that transaction total. So restaurants and other retail businesses are paying more to collect sales tax than the current credit provides because our average bank card processing fees are double the current credit that's allowed. So the current credit should be doubled to 2.4% on the first $6,000 and then 1.8% of any excess amount so that businesses do not have to pay the expense of collecting state sales tax. And the second issue is restoring the sales tax exemption for restaurants' purchase of energy such as electricity or gas used to operate a restaurant. And we previously testified before this committee last month on a separate bill on the same issue, House Bill 995. And you also heard from 2 restaurant operators who testified in support of this. And I won't repeat that testimony, but I will only remind you that restaurants and food service business purchases of energy used to produce food for resale were exempt from sales tax until 1992, when the General Assembly repealed it in a budget reconciliation bill. And we're simply asking for that to be restored through this legislation or the separate bill. And then finally, we're also asking for a Maryland Restaurant Week sales tax holiday. And this would incentivize customers to support restaurants during that week, because restaurant food and non-alcoholic beverage purchases would be exempt from sales tax during this week in September of each year if the taxable price of the item is $40 or less. We had a very successful Maryland Restaurant Week promotion for restaurants last year, and it contributed to about $26 million in additional gross industry sales in the month of September versus August. And that resulted in about 1.6 million in sales tax revenue. So I think the fiscal note impact estimates may be a little high on this bill because of the calculation methods that they used. So we thank you for your time on this, and we request your favorable consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And then last we have Mike O'Halloran.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the House Ways and Means Committee. For the record, my name is Mike O'Halloran, here on behalf of NFIB Maryland. I want to thank you and thanks Delegate Howard for introducing this bill. As my colleagues from the restaurants and retailers pointed out, there are provisions in the bill specifically tailored for those industries. But NFIB, given the vast sectors and industries that we as an organization represent, I want to tailor my comments towards, the UI deferment portion of the bill, as well as the tax credit for personal protecting equipment. Those two combined really do cast a wide net that benefits all small businesses throughout Maryland. And if I could, especially because I've spoken to a lot of legislators, indeed a lot of members of this committee, about unemployment insurance and frankly, the bill that's going to be coming due over the next several years for our Maryland employers, and offering a deferment as House Bill 1318 does, really allows small business owners to take some of that money and put it towards things that are more critical at the time, especially given the economic crisis that we're all just starting to work our way back from, and allows it to invest it not only in the building, in their equipment, but also in their employees. So that, again, coupled with a tax credit, a lot of the as we learned earlier this week with Governor Hogan's announcement, masking mandates, other PPE requirements are still in effect. So enacting this sort of legislation provides a little bit more money going back into the small business owner. So for these reasons, Madam Chair, members of the committee, respectfully request a favorable report for House Bill 1318.
Thank you very much. Any questions for any of the 3 witnesses?
Chair, if I can.
Sure.
Sorry, this isn't the second bite at the apple. I misstated. I was reading current statute as far as the credit card processing timely vendor. It would go from 0.9 to 1.8 and 1.2 to 2.4 the first 6,000 collected, and from 500 to 1,000 capped. So I just want to let you guys know that I misstated. I was talking about current statute, not what the bill would actually do. So just for clarity, and also too, as a retailer, I've already gone contactless for safety of my customers, and a lot of businesses already have. And I think, and I can look it up if anybody's really truly interested, but I can tell you, I think for 2 little credit card processing, one on my side, one on the customer side, I think it was $489. It doesn't sound like a whole mountain of money, but to a lot of small businesses out there, $250 would go a long way to knowing, being able to take that tax credit to helping with the purchase of this equipment. So just wanted to put that out there, and I thank you all again.
All right, thank you. Again, any questions for Delegate Howard or for the three witnesses? All right, thank you very much, Delegate Howard. To members, moving on from this to the two gaming bills, we next have Delegate Pippy with House Bill 1224.
All right, thank you, Chairwoman Kaiser, Vice Chair Washington, and members of the hardworking Ways and Means Committee. Delegate Jesse Pippy for the record, here to present House Bill 1224. Look, should there be an opportunity to acquire a sports and event wagering license, I'd like to present a location in Frederick County for your consideration. We have a successful minority and women-owned, and more importantly, a minority and women-operated business. Ideally located right off of I-270 in Frederick County, just outside of Maryland's second largest city, which is the city of Frederick, at the intersection of major highways. So I-270, I-70, and Route 15, which is close to Montgomery County, Howard County, and Carroll counties. And more importantly, this location is literally the gateway to all of. Currently, this location is operating as a brick and mortar hotel and one of Maryland's 9 off-track betting sites. In conclusion, this is a turnkey, minority and women-owned and operated business, ideally located to accommodate a large segment of Maryland's citizens. This bill is also supported by our bipartisan Senate and House delegations, as well as by our Chamber of Commerce. And the committee should have those letters. So in the end, I ask this committee for your consideration and a favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Pippy. Delegate, given the second and third reader debate that we already had on House Bill 940 in the House, where this OTB and other locations have a chance to apply, do you still feel like the bill is necessary?
I think it was just important to highlight the location. Obviously, I think what's going to happen next is up to you guys in the Senate, and we just hope for an opportunity to be part of the conversation. But as far as the bill itself, I'll leave that up to you. I hope that Frederick County can be considered, because I really do think that we have a great location for consideration.
All right, we have another question, Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So just curious, those that are bidding for it are spending $50,000 for a license, Class B. Ones that have them designated for them are spending 5 times that much, both for to get the license and in terms of annual fees. Have you talked to this organization? Are they prepared to make that sort of investment?
I think the next speaker will probably have a better handle on the specifics as far as resources. But I think our location is definitely prepared to do what's necessary to be included and have the opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity. But the specifics on finances, I think the next speaker can address that a little bit better than myself. I kind of was the show horse here to just present the location. And I know that you guys are kind of in the details, working with the Senate and trying to figure out, what happens next. So
That's a good reference, show horse, since it's an OTB. Well done.
On this bill.
All right, thank you, Delegate Ebersol. All right, seeing no other questions for Delegate Pippy, we will take the first person testifying, Alice Cohen or Elise, I'm not sure.
Elise, but thank you. Ms. Chairman and distinguished members of the Ways and Means Committee, thank you for having me today. I am here as an owner of Long Shots OTB and Restaurant in Frederick. As a woman-owned business and an established OTB, Long Shots is an ideal candidate to help fuel economic development and grow tax revenues through sports wagering. I look forward to showcasing what we have to offer. First of all, Long Shots is 100% owned by women. In fact, I manage Long Shots on a daily basis. As the sports wagering bill has been debated throughout the workshops, the resounding argument is for the expansion of licenses as well as greater minority inclusion. I couldn't agree more with both points. Yet I believe Long Shots is the only woman-owned business represented to date. To provide you with some background, Long Shots is an OTB that is not within a casino or racetrack. It is Frederick's only place to legally wager apart from the lottery. Located within the Clarion Inn and Frederick Event Center, Long Shots has I-270 frontage and neighbors the regional mall. There are over 500 parking spaces, and prior to COVID, we held 400 plus events each year. Needless to say, it's a prime location. However, Frederick, one of Maryland's largest counties, is essentially excluded from Maryland's casino and gaming outlets. In fact, the closest casino to Frederick, where most locals travel when they want to gamble, is in Charlestown, West Virginia. I am painfully aware of the lost revenue during game nights when many of my customers leave Frederick to bet in Charlestown. Millions of tax dollars are truly being lost, dollars that would otherwise contribute to our education budget. 2/3 of Frederick County voted in favor of sports wagering. Long Shots would provide those voters with a safe and comfortable atmosphere to do just that. In conclusion, we would appreciate being included in the sports wagering bill, as we would like to do our part in adding local jobs as well as growing Maryland's tax revenues. Thank you again for this opportunity.
We have one other person testifying, Bruce Bariano.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the House Ways and Means Committee. For the record, Bruce Bariano, I represent Long Shots. A quick answer to Delegate Ebersol's question. My client is financially able to meet the requirements of the legislation if they are fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be included. Secondly, Madam Chair, I well know the status procedurally of the bill on the House side. I've worked closely in watching your committee. I think the bill you're moving is just excellent, and we are hoping and trying hard that when it gets over to the Senate side, that off-track betting facilities such as my clients will be included and given equitable treatment, because not trying to exaggerate or be critical. Long Shots is no different from any casino in that it is a brick and mortar facility existing right now where betting and gaming is going on. It is a venue where the same activity, obviously in a more broader sense in a casino, is going on. And I think respectfully, when all the voters so overwhelmingly voted for sports betting throughout the state, they wanted locations that are convenient and accessible and really spread out. And respectfully, it makes all the sense in the world to me and my client that you have an existing venue where that activity is going on. As that activity is expanding, as the voters requested, off-track betting parlors, particularly Long Shots, should be included and participate in that activity. Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And thank you. Before I take Delegate Barnes's question, I do want to point out to Ms. Cohen that the Charles County site is both women-owned and minority-owned, because I believe you said that none of the sites chosen were women-owned. So I wanted to clarify that, and that there will be 22 licenses plus 15 mobile licenses. So potentially every county could be represented at some point. Delegate Barnes with a question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess my question is for Ms. Cohen. I believe that you said that your establishment is owned by women. Is that correct? So yes. You said it's 100% owned by women. So out of that ownership, how many of those women are women of color?
0, it's me.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions for any of these individuals? All right, thank you both Ms. Cohen and Mr. Bariano. We are done with the hearing on Bill 1224. We're moving next to Delegate Walker, House Bill 1298.
Good afternoon, committee. For the record, Delegate Jay Walker, presenting House Bill 1298. House Bill 1298 is a bill that needs to correct a wrong that was made, and it wasn't done purposely. What it's trying to do is, for the hold harmless clause that we have in the state of Maryland, It's trying to rectify it to make it more fair and equitable. I'll give you a brief synopsis of how this came about and why I say it was done unintentional. In 2016, this committee, along with the Appropriations Committee, we voted, and the people in the state of Maryland voted to allow a 6th casino site. And allowing the 6th casino site, there was a sense that we already had Anne Arundel County, which was a large casino site in Baltimore City, and they had gotten used to the revenue that they were bringing in from their casino site. So we said, well, it wouldn't be right for us to have their local impact funds affected by a casino that was opening in Prince George's County that had high projections. So in doing so, they came up with a hold harmless clause. We said we would take a snapshot of what they were getting in local impact. And after that 1-year snapshot, when MGM or the Prince George's location opened up, we just wanted to ensure that their communities weren't being affected. So the number for Anne Arundel County was around $18.5 million. The number in Baltimore City was like $7.5 million. They were doing that. So when the casino opened in Prince George's County, believe it or not, those numbers did not go down. And I'm saying that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Baltimore went from 7.6 to almost 9 million. And Anne Arundel County went from 18.4 to almost 20 million. But the way the formula is done, it takes all the money, it divides it by 3. And if you look at page 2 or 3 of your fiscal note, it does a decent job describing it. I just try to make it clear, but it divides it by 3. So let's take, you have $36 million total, you divide it by 3. When you divide it by 3 amongst Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore City, everybody would get roughly $12 million apiece in that money. Well, the problem is Anne Arundel County was getting more than $12 million. They were making 18.4. So we acknowledge that needs to be made up. So so you give 12 million to each 3 jurisdictions, and then Baltimore, which was only receiving 7.6, they get 12 million. So that's a $5 million gain for them, and it's a $6 million loss for Anne Arundel County. And the $6 million loss from Anne Arundel County comes squarely off the shoulders of Prince George's County. These are local impact funds. So I'm not saying that this is, Baltimore should not lose their $5 million they get, because as a county government, they're used to receiving that amount of money. Anne Arundel County, we want to make sure they were taken care of. They're still receiving their money. So I'm not saying that we do it. I'm just saying that the hold harmless clause should not come out of the pockets of Prince George's County. And here's why it's so important. When we talked about it early on, we were told by staff and by legislative writers that don't worry, Prince George is not going to be affected. Well, they were wrong. They were wrong. To date, last year it cost Prince George's County $3.9 million. And to date, this has cost Prince George's County $21 million of local impact. And that's not fair when you consider the fact that we have the #1 casino in the state of Maryland, but the local impact dollars, we get the least amount of the big 3. It's not fair. So what I'm asking for is a fairness issue. And the reason why it's really important is because the local impact fund, we've got transportation, which is earmarked, transportation projects, which are earmarked from the local impact dollars in the initial bill that we put in. So the bill that you have before you does not take money away from Anne Arundel County, does not take money away from Baltimore. It just simply says that the money that comes in from off the top, that $5 million that Prince George's County has to pay out every year should come off the top. And that would help us out with our local impact. And with lottery and the VLTs are the reason where the local impact monies come from. And now we've got sportsbook betting coming. So what happens if all of a sudden the numbers go down a little bit just because of sportsbook betting? That will put Prince George's County on the hook for even more. And I just think that it's the right thing to do for our district. The folks down there are well aware of this. And you just have to ask the question, how can the #1 casino in the state of Maryland get the least amount of local impact money and we not be willing to help them out? With that being said, I would welcome any questions.
Questions, Delegate Barnes?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Walker, for the bill. So I'm just trying to understand it because, you know, this local impact grants and hold harmless was in place before I got elected. So I'm just trying to understand the intent of your bill. Your intent is to make everything whole, make it fair for Anne Arundel, Baltimore, and Prince George's County. Is that correct?
Yes, and mostly Anne Arundel County and Baltimore, they're okay with it, but it's Prince George's that is being affected by this. As I mentioned before, Baltimore gets more money than they receive. So prior to the National Harbor location opening, they were getting 7.6 million. Now they get 12 million. I'm saying that was a mistake that was made, you know, and not right or wrong, but the formula for funding it. So I think you have to keep it. Baltimore deserves to keep their money because their local government has gotten accustomed to this money. But the fact is, Prince George's County for the 210, Route 210, the 40% of that funding is supposed to come from local impact grants. Well, we're losing almost $4 million a year in local impact grants that are going for this hold harmless. And so I know some of y'all may know last year there was a bill put in at the last minute. I think Delegate Ivey worked on, and this committee might have, but I understand what they were trying to do. They realized that there was a need to help Prince George's County, but by giving the money directly to the county, you're not giving it to the local impact community. And when you have local impact community, which is formula based, the neighborhoods like I have behind me, the Rivertown shopping area, they don't qualify for that. So you're still taking the county getting money, but then the local impact money is still going towards the Anne Arundel and Baltimore share. So this bill just says, take it off the top. Don't make us have to get jealous of one another. Let's do the right thing and just rectify the situation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Move
All
favorable.
right. Seeing none, we're done with the hearing on House Bill 1298. We will move on to the last three bills of the day, which are related to economic development, starting with Delegate Henson, House Bill 1303.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I able to share my screen?
No, you're not.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to present House Bill 1303. This bill is a bill that's designed to spur minority and women-owned participation in our existing state grant programs. Again, this bill does not add any new appropriations. It simply expands the scope and eligibility for the programs that we have currently. In the spring of 2020, the State Department of Commerce acted swiftly to mobilize $50 million from the state's rainy day fund to the Maryland small businesses that at the outset of the coronavirus pandemic were struggling with financial losses. When we look at the money and who it was appropriated to, there are some business sectors that were not eligible for the money simply by way of the eligibility criteria. You had to be a business that had employees, specifically W-2 employees, and you had to be in good standing with the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. Those were two of the many eligibility criteria. When we look at the requirement for employees with the W-2 employees, we understand that non-employer businesses are still a vital part of our state's economy. Nationally, there are more than 25 million non-employer businesses. About 35% of those non-employer businesses are minority-owned businesses. 3.6 million Hispanic-owned businesses are non-employer businesses. 10.6 million women-owned businesses are non-employer businesses. And 95% of Black-owned businesses are non-employer businesses. The way that we've structured the distribution of our state funding when it comes to emergency relief and grant funds, we are excluding those businesses from even being eligible. They can't even compete, even if they have a great business model and they're worthy of funding. What the bill does is it opens up and expands that eligibility to allow them to put their applications in and compete with businesses so that they're not excluded at the door. The second thing that the bill does is it opens the eligibility up for businesses that have fallen out of good standing. I want to differentiate too. Businesses that are not in good standing are not the businesses that have had their charter forfeited, but just those that have fallen out of good standing. And there's a number of reasons. You could have fallen behind on not filing your form on time. You could be behind with not having one piece of paperwork in and be excluded from being able to participate in some of the programs that we've designed here in this very General Assembly to help our constituents respond to the changing needs that they'll have with tough economic times. So what the bill would do is give them access to up to 40% of the funds that would be eligible to them under any of the state's emergency relief programs to get themselves back into compliance and to reinstate their good standing. When they have those funds, they could use it to get to pay any fines or fees that they have that are outstanding. They could use it to get any technical support or assistance that they need to navigate any forms or anything else that they need to make sure that they're up to speed with their forms with SDAT and that they're remaining good standing, and then access the rest of those funds so that they could be competitive with their business. That's simply what the bill does. It does do that by way of the bill as drafted, and then a number of amendments that I've also put before the committee for your consideration. I thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 1303 for the committee's consideration. I would ask for a favorable report. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Henson. We have questions. We'll start with Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Henson. Just had a couple of questions. You said that one could borrow up to 40%, correct?
Correct.
All right, so roughly on average, what do you think the average business from a financial assistance will require or ask for?
So when we looked at the last round of funds that came out from the state, you were allowed to get up to 3 months of your operating capital or 10,000, whichever were greater. So if they were able to get up to 40% of any loan that were available to them, and they were able to get $4,000 at a maximum of what was available under the state's grant at the time, if you were looking at the worst case scenario from SDAT, if you hadn't paid your $250 personal property tax, if you were late and you had any fines or penalties, I think it would be well within the scope of whatever a business needed to cover whatever they were behind on. I certainly can't envision every scenario, but I think that if a business had beyond the $4,000, they probably wouldn't be competitive for all the other reasons that we would want to support a business. So their application probably wouldn't be selected by the Department of Commerce for a grant. But I think that with the $4,000, if they're still looking at that window being the scope of what they might get for 40%, I think that that distribution would give them the sufficient support they would need to be able to be successful, to access the remaining amount, to then be able to put that portion towards their business and being able to use it to help support their business.
Last question, Madam Chair. And roughly how many businesses do you think have been impacted or would need this financial assistance?
So when I reached out to the department to quantify how many businesses there were that had fallen out of good standing, they were able to give me that number, but trying to quantify how many businesses were in the other category of non-employer, they were not able to give me that number. But for the businesses that were out of good standing, and I'll ask for the committee's indulgence just to get to that part of my notes. I don't want to give you the wrong number. They gave me 58,500 entities that are currently in the state of Maryland that are not in good standing, but have not been forfeited.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Delegate Barnes. Thank you, Delegate Henson. If there's no other questions, I'll move to the two people signed up to testify. We have next Jacqueline Alsop.
Good afternoon, Chairman Kaiser and Vice Chairman Washington and committee members. I'm Jacqueline Boone Alsop, President of the NAACP Anne Arundel County Branch and Second Vice President of the NAACP Maryland State Conference, speaking on behalf of President Willie Flowers. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to testify regarding House Bill 1303. In August of 2020, the Federal Reserve of New York released a report entitled Double Jeopardy, COVID-19's Concentrated Health and Wealth Efforts in Black Communities. This report points out nationally representative data on small businesses indicate that the number of active business owners fell by 22% from February to April 2020, the largest drop on record. While the overall decline is noteworthy, differences among closure rates across racial and ethnic groups are even more striking. Black businesses experienced the most acute decline from 41% drop. Latino groups, businesses owners fell by 32%, and Asian business owners dropped by 26%. In contrast, the number of white business owners fell by 17%. House Bill 1303 attempts to level the playing field to remove those structural limitations of disaster relief by increasing flexibility in the qualifying criteria needed to be considered for such relief. This bill also provides clarity regarding what type of debt can be paid off with this disaster relief. For example, if a business has an outstanding tax bill, it would be able to use the relief funds to become current. Therefore, the business would be more likely to be eligible for other relief assistance in the future, or perhaps even a commercial loan having cleared up outstanding delinquencies. The NAACP Maryland State Conference asked the committee for a favorable return on HB 1303.
Thank you very much. And next I have Ben Burge.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Ben Burge. I'm the President and CEO of the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation. You have my written testimony and a letter of support from County Executive Pittman, strongly urging a favorable report on House Bill 1303. Ms. Alsup certainly summed up the racial disparities of the struggles our small businesses are facing. And you've been hearing about a lot of the other struggles that have been going on, so I'm not gonna rehash those. In the pre-pandemic days, grant and loan programs at all levels of government were signaled way in advance. They were budgeted in advance. There was sufficient guidance and documentation and even help for applicants to get through the process. Really, that's not the case anymore. Today, at all levels of government, financial assistance programs are popping up and closing down quickly for the purpose of getting money out the door and into the hands of small business owners as fast as possible. House Bill 1303 provides our small minority and women-owned businesses an opportunity to respond to these programs. It allows them to apply for the programs and provides additional time needed to get in good standing with the state. That's a really important aspect of the application process. We found it at the local level. As we've been giving out grants, we always check with the whether the businesses are in good standing, and if they're not, we reach out to them. We show them how to get in good standing, help them take care of that, and once they show progress, we then process them through the grant process. And it's turned out to be a very valuable addition to helping our small businesses. House Bill 1303 does not provide any preferences or set aside additional funding or lower standards in any way. It simply gives our small business community an opportunity to apply. We learned from the federal PPP program that larger businesses that can afford accountants and attorneys have the capacity to respond to financial programs much more easily. Small businesses don't have that luxury. House Bill 1303 helps small businesses participate in this new dynamic of funding assistance, and we respectfully urge a favorable report. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much. We do have questions. We'll start with Delegate Palakovich-Carr.
Madam Chair, this question I think is for Mr. Burge. We have informational testimony from SDAT about some of the common reasons for why businesses may not be in good standing. I'm wondering if you have any experience or knowledge of, what happens when a business does submit documents, say they've missed filing a personal property return or had a check bounce or something like that. Do you have any information about how long it typically takes for SDAT to file that and to update the, the status of the business, whether or not they're in good standing?
I don't have that. I would be happy to reach out to SDAT and work with them to provide that information to the committee. Basically, we take the duck approach, which is if it looks like a small business, it acts like a small business, and quacks like a small business, we're going to do everything we can in our power to help them. Certainly, if there's some bad players out there and it looks like they're going out of their way not to be compliant, trying to skirt the laws and whatnot, we might not be as favorable, but if we think they're making a good faith effort and can document it, we're going to work with them. But I'll get you that, be happy to get you that information, Delegate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for our two witnesses? All right, thank you both so much. Thank you, Delegate Henson. We are done with the hearing on House Bill 1303. We'll move to House Bill 1309. Delegate Mingione.
Thank you, Chair Kaiser and the committee. I'll be very brief presenting HB 1309. This is a simple bill. It's bipartisan. It is a cross-file to Senator Feltman's SB 459. And basically, the bill expands the purpose of the Maryland Small Business Innovation Research Technical Assistance Program to include assisting with the small businesses with attracting and accessing private capital. So basically, the program, it can already do things like technical assistance and training assistance and help apply for federal grants. But what this bill will again allow is to help attract and access private capital. That's all it does. And there's no fiscal note. It can all be handled with existing resources. So that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Delegate Mangione.
Thank you. Have a good one.
There's no one signed up on this one. So to members, we are on our last bill for today. It's a departmental bill from the Department of Commerce, and looks like we are being joined by Secretary Kelly Schultz. Secretary Schultz, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. And I can hear from the tone of the committee that you guys want me to go on and on and on about everything that we have going on. And we're just going to talk for another 30 or 45 minutes or so, Madam Chair.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you.
I do want to thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kelly Schultz, Secretary of the Maryland Department of Commerce, and I'm here testifying in support of House Bill 1342. I am also joined today by a member of my staff, a brilliant member of my staff, Darla Garrett, who can help to answer specific technical program questions if anybody may have any. But I think this is a pretty simple bill. This is a departmental bill that makes one important change to our Partnership for Workforce Quality, or what we know it in the department as the PWQ program. This change will make the program more effective by aligning it more closely with the needs of our business community and will help us connect more Marylanders with good jobs. That's what our role is here at Commerce. The PWQ program was first established in 1989. It was dormant for a period of time and was reactivated by budget appropriations in fiscal year 2018. It provides matching reimbursable grants to help Maryland manufacturing and technology companies cover the cost of new training for their existing employees. Since its inception, the program has provided nearly $39 million to support more than 99,000 employee training slots in Maryland companies. The intent was that these companies stay competitive by making it easier for them to modernize operations, upgrade equipment, develop new management practices, and improve their efficiency. But the way that it stands right now, it's only for existing employees. And one of the main concerns that we've been hearing from businesses for some time, I've heard it, I know many of you have heard as well, is that they have jobs that are available, but they can't find qualified and trained new workers to fill these positions. So House Bill 1342 expands the eligibility of the program to also include training for new employees. And we have businesses who are ready to hire right now in the middle of this pandemic. And we have people who are ready to work in the middle of this pandemic. But there's a training gap, and that's keeping them apart. And this change will help to bridge that gap. This is particularly important for the high-tech economy and places all across the state that have the ability to bring on workers right now with the ability of just a little bit of additional training. There's no additional funding that's attached to our proposal, but it will help businesses to grow, and it will allow more Marylanders to not only find high quality jobs, but to learn skills that they will carry over throughout the course of their career. And so, Madam Chair, I respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 1342. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Now, is Ms. Garrett, is she just here to answer questions?
Yes, ma'am. She is here if there are any questions that I am not capable of answering. Yes.
I understand. Okay. All right. Mike Kelleher.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the entire committee, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Mike Kelleher. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Manufacturing Extension Partnership, the MDMEP, and I am here today to respectfully request a favorable opinion of House Bill 1342 to make these alterations to the Partnership for Workforce Quality Program, PWQ. In my role with MDMEP, I am fortunate to work closely with many of Maryland's 4,000 manufacturers, and these manufacturers currently employ 108,000 workers across the state. The number one concern that these manufacturers consistently identify is workforce and training to be their greatest challenge and obstacle that they need to overcome. Over the last 3 years, I've seen these manufacturers take advantage of the PWQ program. Firsthand, we've seen more than a dozen of these manufacturers utilize the PWQ funding to not only provide training to their existing workforce, but to upskill those workforce employees, creating opportunities for new workers to enter into the building. In fact, 6 of these manufacturers over that time have trained 266 employees as a direct result of the funding they received from PWQ. And during that same time period, those 6 manufacturers were able to hire 72 new employees, but those employees under the existing structure were not able to receive training assistance through the PWQ program as it's structured today. As it's currently written, PWQ funds may not be used for new hire training or to provide skills training to workers who have been employed for less than a year. According to a survey that was conducted by Deloitte, by 2028, there will be more than 2.4 million manufacturing jobs unfilled. And to address this, Maryland manufacturers are going to be required to recruit, hire, and most importantly, train new workers to fill these positions and close the ever-increasing skills gap. And it's for these reasons that I believe the alterations proposed in House Bill 1342 will help improve Maryland's competitiveness and help Maryland manufacturers fulfill this unmet training need. And for that reason, I would respectfully ask a favorable report on House Bill 1342. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Questions? Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Secretary Schultz, for the presentation. I just had a couple of questions. Roughly, how long is a training that one would receive when they enter into this agreement or partnership? You're on mute, Madam Secretary.
Sorry, and I think that's a great question. And I will say that depends on the cohort, and that depends on the type of training that needs to occur. Obviously, coming from the Department of Labor and having spent 4 years there prior to this position, it really depends on the type of training that it needs. So it could be a course that would be a 1-month course to get them suitable to perform a function on a specific piece of equipment, or it could be an elongated term depending on where they are with operations within a manufacturing or highly technical type of facility. But those cohorts are very specific to the needs of the industry and the business that's requesting the funding for them.
So when we are providing funding for them, is there a maximum or minimum in which they must require or qualify for?
I will ask Ms. Garrett to maybe respond to that, but there is some flexibility. They have to request funding from the state based on the specific type of training that is taking place. And I'll just say that where we are right now, and Darla can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no other state training program with state dollars that allows these types of trainings to occur. So last year, when we had presented this bill, which was a little bit more complicated, the Department of Labor testified with me at the table because their federal dollars do not allow training for incoming personnel. It allows training for the continuation of employees. And that's a big difference when it comes to employers looking to bring people into new technologies. And I'll just put it out there. We have a lot of major projects that are happening in the state right now and a lot of opportunities that are occurring, which we are going to want to be able to make opportunities available to both the businesses and the future employees to be able to get those types of trainings moving into new career pathways.
My last question, Madam Chair.
Darla, is there something else? I just wanted to open it up to Darla because she might be able to fact check me on some of that, Delegate. Thank you.
Just to give you a general idea, the average grant amount is around $32,000. We typically are looking for a minimum training amount of $10,000 with a maximum of around $25,000. But again, that's flexible. I have done grants for $5,000 and $2,000. It really depends on the company and the training need. And the average size of the company is less than 100 employees. So we're dealing with small companies.
Thank you so much. So my last question then, if the dollar amount ranges varies depending on the type of training, the size of the company, do we have any demographics as to where these opportunities are, or how many companies are we actually helping?
We can give you the current data at this point in time, of course. It'll be similar probably to the Department of Labor's data as to where the training programs are, but happy to be able to provide follow-up with the committee after this.
Yeah, if you can provide that to the committee, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from members? All right, thank you, Secretary Schultz. Thank you to the members. We're done with the hearing on House Bill 1342 and done with our bill hearing for today. I believe, I want to see if there's any announcements for our subcommittee. I believe our education subcommittee that was originally at 4 and then 3 is canceling until tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. We will be voting as a full committee tomorrow, depending on it at this moment in time at 2 p.m. I believe all the other subcommittees have met once or twice already this week. Are there any other subcommittee announcements for today or tomorrow? Yes, Delegate Ebersole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Early childhood will be meeting at noon tomorrow.
Anybody else for today or tomorrow? And then to members, you should have already received an email for Monday. We're having a hearing at 1 p.m. on just the Blueprint 2.0 bill, mostly a bill to adjust the dates given the bill passage and veto last year and then the veto override. So a lot of formulas have to be changed. There's some other policy changes involved. And this is a joint hearing with appropriations, which is why it has to be Monday, given that they're stacked next week with all their budget meetings and final decisions. So that'll be Monday at 1 o'clock, just that one bill. There were clearly a few other bills that came out of rules today that our analysts will have to schedule for next week, but they were outside of, I think, of a virtual education bill. I think the others are much smaller. So there will be another day of a few bills. If